My dad was considered to be a pioneer because he was the first African American to open African American Funeral Home in the city of Apopka, where we serviced, and he serviced not only Apopka, but surrounding counties. What made Mr. Zanders special was that he was a giver. He cared about all people. He did a lot of scholarship sponsors for colleges, for students, those that were less privileged, who probably would not have gone to college without his support. He had numerous sponsorships such as the Zanderettes, FAMU. He sponsored a softball team, baseball team. We also sponsored the youth baseball team here in the city of Apopka. He just felt like all children ought to be given an education, whether they could afford it or not, and that was just his thing. And I can remember growing up when the Central Florida Fair would come. There were van loads of kids that I had the privilege of taking to the fair because they could not afford for whatever reason. And they would come to the funeral home, and Mr. Zanders would tell them that my daughter or an employee would take them to the fair. So we had that duty of doing those things. Christmas time was a big time of year for my father. He loved Christmas. We would start Christmas right after the Thanksgiving holidays, where we had to shop for the ministers in the Apopka areas or the churches that we've serviced. We did for underprivileged children who didn't have anything for Christmas, and he would tell the parents to come by and drop off their wish list. Growing up, they didn't have a lot. He was a worker. He believed that if you wanted to be successful, you had to work your way up the ranks, and that's why it was so important to him. They eat the Christmas holidays as children, that he would make sure all of them had a Christmas present, and he would wrap it, and Christmas just stood out with him. He was like a kid when it came to the Christmas holidays, and we still do that. Last year we had Christmas in the park here in Apopka at Williams Park, and we had Santa Claus, and we gave over 50 bicycles and tablets just to underprivileged children. And that was just his niche, and we're continuing his legacy. And those are things that made Mr. Zanders the people's choice, even with servicing families. If you didn't have money, he didn't turn you away. He worked with what you had, and we're still doing that in the business today because that's what he worked so hard for.